Good morning. So this morning we're looking at the features of a text, and let's have a look at our aims and outcomes. So by the end of this session, learners must understand what the purpose of a text means, provide a clear explanation of the purpose of a text, use a range of language features and devices. You should identify a range of presentation features, so bullet points, titles, headings, images, and so on, and explain why presentation features are used in a text. And you could identify the use of pronouns, positive, negative language, and comparisons to underline meaning, and identify alliteration, similes, and metaphors. So first of all, what is a text? So the term text doesn't mean a text message. So the meaning of a text in recent years, our first thought would be a text message. But when we're talking about English, when we're as a subject, when we're talking about English literature, or we're talking about the documents that we're looking at, you might hear it called a text rather than a document. So it could be a letter, an email, a book, form, a leaflet, an article, a notice, and so on. So it's referring to a printed or electronic text or document. So texts have a purpose. All texts have a purpose. They are usually to persuade. So it could be to persuade the reader to use green electricity, or it could be to describe. So in that text, it would be to describe how green electricity works. Another purpose could be to instruct, to tell the reader how to apply for green electricity. To explain, so explain why green electricity is good for consumers. To inform, so in this case to inform readers about the need for green electricity. To argue, so to inform, to argue that green electricity is a waste of money. And to advise. Sorry about this. So to advise the reader of the benefits of green electricity. So you can see there one topic, green electricity, could have all of those different text types written about it. Okay, so these are general purpose, but you need to be specific about the purpose with regards to the content of the text. So if you're asked what the purpose of the text is, then you will need to give some more information. Okay, so when you are doing your reading assessment, you'll be asked to identify the main purpose of a text. So there may be more than one purpose, and there often is in documents in real life as well as in the test. But you need to focus in this assessment on the main one. So do make sure in the test that you focus on the main purpose, not secondary ones. And do make sure that you give a full explanation. So So what you shouldn't do is just write to persuade, to advise, because you won't get any marks. You need to write about the content. So to persuade the reader that, and then give specific information from the text that you have read. So to work out the purpose of a text, you need to look at the type of text it is. So is it a letter, an email, an article, and so on? Its content, so looking at the sentence structure, style, and vocabulary. Its format, so how is the text presented and structured? And also the intended audience. So who is it written for? So any questions before we watch the first video?
Persuasive texts.
Recognizing different types of texts by the language and structure they use is useful not only to recognize what kind of text you're reading, it's also helpful to have this knowledge when writing a specific type of text.
Examples:
advertisements, political pamphlets. They are often quite short texts and may contain texts directed to the reader personally.
Why not try our bonfire cake? It's a wonderful new cake baked to perfection and using only the highest quality ingredients. The traditional recipe uses sticky treacle, moist brown sugar, the freshest free-range eggs, healthy whole grain flour and freshly ground spices. This delicious cake is food for the gods. However, it's cheap enough for us mere mortals to enjoy every week.
Overall, we get the impression that the text is being directed to us personally. Descriptions, full use of adjectives and adverbs.
Wonderful, new, traditional, sticky, moist, brown, free range, freshly ground, delicious, mere.
Persuasive language and vocabulary, for example, superlative adjectives, overemphasis and exaggeration.
Baked to perfection, highest quality, freshest, healthy, food for the gods.
Reasoning connectives, for example,
therefore, however.
Rhetorical questions.
Why not try our bonfire cake?
Images or pictures.
Okay, and before we move on, we do have another short video to watch. If you just bear with me while I...
Writers use language features to achieve effects and influence readers. A text from a charity trying to persuade the reader to make a donation would use persuasive language. The use of rhetorical questions to make the reader stop and think. You wouldn't walk past an animal in pain and do nothing, would you? The use of the personal pronoun you to address the reader individually. And the use of emotional language to make the reader sympathetic or guilty. Writers also use creative language to make the texts they write more engaging to the reader. Creative language can create images in the reader's head, and therefore they become more involved in the story. Examples:
the creative use of verbs. Consider the following sentence. The team of climbers walked down the mountain. Walked isn't a particularly interesting verb, but if you substitute it for snaked, you get a far more evocative sentence. The team of climbers snaked down the mountain. As a reader, you now get an image of the climbers weaving their way down the hill.
Similes compare something with something else using the words like or as. He was as tall as a tree. This creates the image of a really tall person, but is far more interesting than just saying he was very tall.
Metaphor makes a comparison between two seemingly different or unlikely words or phrases. I'm in a sea of trouble. This metaphor creates an image of someone stranded at sea. We know seas are vast, so this means a lot of trouble. But it's a much more interesting way of saying it.
Hyperbole is exaggeration. Persuasive texts, such as adverts, use it a lot to get you to buy their products. Our drink will give you wings. It's also used creatively for humorous effect, and also to create strong feelings like anger or love. I cried a river over you.
Alliteration is the grouping of words that all start with the same consonant letter, creating an interesting rhythmic effect. Alliteration is frequently used in newspaper headlines to grab a reader's attention. Jolly japes in June.
An oxymoron is when two contrasting words or ideas appear next to each other. They have the effect of making the reader stop and think, and they're often used in attention-grabbing film or book titles.
An onomatopoeia is a word that sounds like its meaning, and is a good way of bringing life to a creative text. Martin splashed in the puddles.
Personification attaches human attributes or skills to an object or thing. The tree danced in the breeze. This is another example of using a verb creatively. You could write, the tree swayed in the breeze, but danced is a more interesting image.
Next time you read a persuasive or creative text, be aware of the language features that the writer uses. Words can be powerful. They can influence opinions, and they can also create vibrant and engaging images.
Okay, any questions about the videos?
No, for me.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. So, language features and devices. So some of these were, or all of these were mentioned in the video. There were some additional ones in the video. But have a look at these and see if there's any language features that you recognise. So just take a moment to read through them. So does anyone recognise any of these either from the video or because you've come across them before?
No, we don't know.
You're not sure? Okay,
No.
fine. We're going to look at them in detail anyway, but I just wanted to know if anyone recognised any. Okay, let's have a look then. So alliteration is where the first sound of a word is repeated across a number of consecutive words. So words, so in the sentence or phrase. So it's the sound, not the letter. So it's about how it sounds out loud or in your head when you're reading it, not what it looks like. It's the sound. So simply, sensational, suits. So you can hear that repeated S sound there. Funky, flexible phone plans. So that repeated F sound. And if you have a look at the phone, the word phone, you can see it does start with a PH, but as I mentioned, alliteration is about the sound. So it still has that F sound. Funky, flexible phone. Lovely, long limousine. Okay, so can anyone think of an example that they can come up with now or they might have heard before? So let's have a look. So if so if I give you the word kitten, can you think of some words beginning with that sound to describe the kitten? How could we describe a kitten using a word that begins with that k sound? So either a C or a K.
Cat.
So, well, it could be cat or kitten, but that's a noun. So I need some adjectives, some describing words.
You can put cute.
Cute, brilliant. So cute, and let's have another one.
Cuddly.
Excellent, cuddly. Good. So cute, cuddly kitten. Okay. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well done. So cliches. Excuse me. Cliches are overused sayings or words. So they give a familiarity to the text, and also obviously they're used in speech, and they give that familiarity, but they're overused cliches. So if you're writing, then you're usually advised to not use too many. The odd one, it gives, as I say, some familiarity to the text, but using a lot, it just makes the whole document seem cliched and unoriginal. Okay, but you will spot them in text because, as I say, using the odd one is okay. So when you're reading, you will see them. So we've got some examples here. Over the moon, frightened to death, every cloud has a silver lining. So can anyone think of an example of a cliche they might have come across? So something you hear a lot is at the end of the day. So when people are talking, that's often a phrase used to sum up an argument or a point they're trying to make. At the end of the day, and then they'll continue with their point. Someone's upset because they've split up with a partner, and there's a cliche that's often used, don't worry, there's plenty more fish in the sea. Okay. So are we okay with cliches? Does anyone have any questions about those? Okay. So commands are sentences that use the imperative to give a direction. So command sentences begin with a verb. So that's what you need to remember. They begin with a verb. The you is understood. So they don't start with you. They're a command to somebody or a group of people. So that is already understood. You don't need to include it. They begin with the verb. And there's sometimes they might have an exclamation mark. So we'll see some examples of that. So most of the sentences that you might see in the text that begin with a verb will be a command. So that's something you can look out for. Does the sentence begin with a verb? Then it's likely to be a command sentence. So get out. So you can imagine that is, if that was said out loud, it would perhaps be said in a raised voice, an angry voice. So it's got that exclamation mark at the end. So the person is commanding, directing someone to get out of the room or the building or whatever. So give me your phone number. So between new colleagues, new friends and so on, acquaintances, give me your phone number. So that could be asked as a question. can I have your phone number? But here it's a command. It starts with the verb give. And here's an example that we often see in advertising. Buy today, pay tomorrow. So in that sentence, we've got two command verbs, buy, pay, and also an exclamation mark, because it's such a surprising, great deal. So the advertisers want that to be what people think, so they put an exclamation mark at the end. And again, that's another clue. It starts with a verb, it ends with an exclamation mark. That's a big clue that that is a command sentence. So put the shirt in the washing machine. So again, the verb put at the beginning, it's a command sentence. So can anybody think of another example? So if you think of a verb, and then you could carry on the sentence. So if you think of a verb, and then think how you could make that into a command. So let's have some contributions from you. Just remember to unmute yourself if you're going to share.
Do the washing up.
Pardon?
Do the washing up.
Excellent. So can anyone else give me an example? That's a really good example. Do the washing up. So let's write that on here so we can all see it. So there we go. So it could have an exclamation mark. Any other examples? So I'm going to, something I often have to say to my teenagers. I'm going to start it with the first word, the verb. What might I be asking them to do? I'll give you a clue. It's to do with my pet that I have at home.
Walk the dog.
Excellent. Okay. Can I have one more example? So, the doorbell goes in your house. What might you're in the middle of washing up. What might you say to somebody else in the house if the doorbell's just gone? You can't.
Get the door.
Pardon?
Get the door.
Get the door. Brilliant. Well done. Really good examples there. Okay. Well done. So direct address. This is where the second person you or the person's name is used to speak directly to the reader. So there's some examples here. From the moment you step through the door, you can't help but relax. So I'm imagining this is an advert or a review of a hotel. And the writer, let's imagine it's an advert. So the writer of this advert wants me to imagine myself in that hotel. So they are using direct address, you, to speak directly to me. Then I will imagine that feeling, and then I will want to go and stay there. So from the moment you step through the door, you can't help but relax. Okay. Again, another sentence phrase that we often see in adverts. You've got to see it to believe it. So direct address is frequently used in advertising. Okay, so that's something you can look out for today. We're all bombarded with adverts constantly, either in the newspapers, magazines we're reading, adverts all around us on public transport, on the streets we're walking down, or when we're on social media. So have a look for those direct address sentences using that you. You've got to see it to believe it. And another one, pub or a restaurant, advertising for customers, you're going to love our new menu. Okay, so it's all about making the reader imagine themselves eating that new menu, enjoying it, seeing this amazing sight and believing it. Okay, you've got to see it to believe it. Well, I want to go and see it now because they're talking to me. Okay, so can anyone think of another example? So let's start with the word you. So I'll give you an example. You won't be disappointed. Okay, so possibly that the restaurant or the hotel, you go and visit that place and you won't be disappointed with what you find. So again, frequently that type of sentence would be seen in advertising. So moving on, the use of personal pronouns. And these are used to create a sense of connection or disconnection. They can be used positively and negatively and sometimes convey bias. So when in these sentences, if they were read aloud, the personal pronoun would be stressed to emphasize that meaning, so that positive or negative meaning. Okay, so I'll read them out loud so you can hear that. So this is my chance to shine. Okay, so emphasizing who's going to shine. It's my chance. I'm going to shine. Okay. The running of the power plant was their responsibility and nobody else's. So the stress on that word there. Okay, so that could be negative because if there was an accident at the power plant, somebody wants those people to get to be accountable. The running of the power plant was their responsibility. So it's not mine, it's their responsibility. So using that personal pronoun to stress whose responsibility it is. And this is your future they are talking about. So it doesn't matter to me, this is your future they are talking about. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about using personal pronouns for effect? Does anyone have any examples they could share with us? Okay, so another example could be, so something's gone wrong and somebody says it was your plan that caused this. It could be a positive, so this one would be negative, it's your plan. So they're putting the blame on someone else, but they're more positive. It's thanks to you that we succeeded. Okay, so can you see the difference there, that you can use those personal pronouns for negative and positive meaning. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah? Is there any questions?
No.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Moving on. So direct speech is a quotation of what someone says using speech marks. So it's an amazing invention, said the entrepreneur. The company claimed to offer the fastest service in town. You can tell the writer is doubtful as he says, if you can believe what they say. So it could be that it's a report of a conversation. So it's an amazing invention, said the entrepreneur. So this person, the entrepreneur, spoke these words. It could also be what somebody or a company said in their marketing or advertising or company information. So it's quoting what was said in a document. So the company claimed to offer the fastest service in town. So we're quoting them on that. You can tell the writer is doubtful as he says, if you can believe what they say. So the writer, this is quoted from a text. Okay. So when they say what someone says, it could be spoken, it could be in some type of text, so some marketing or advertising, literature, or a novel or a book or whatever it is. Okay, it's both types. So anytime you're quoting somebody else's words, whether spoken or written, then you need to use those speech marks. They're also called inverted commas. So, but to be aware as well that speech marks can be used to add meaning when someone is deriding or being sarcastic about what someone has written or said. So if I read this sentence, the mansion Paul claimed to live in was nothing more than a 2-bedroom terrace. So putting the speech marks around the word mansion is deriding that. It's making fun or being sarcastic of the word mansion. Okay, so it's adding that meaning. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay. So 2 ways to quote what somebody has said or to deride what somebody has said and add that meaning. So emotive language. This is used to get an emotional reaction from the reader. So when we watched the video earlier, there was a part that showed an advert for an animal charity. And the writer of that advert wanted us to feel empathy because they want us to donate money. So they want to make us feel, oh my goodness, I really want to help those kittens. So the sentence, can you really abandon these poor kittens to a terrible fate? So we've got abandon, poor, terrible. So those type of words are going to make us feel something. Okay. It could be to make a reader feel anger. So the monstrous action devastated the life of an innocent woman. So monstrous, devastated the innocent woman. Okay. Can anyone think of an example? So you can just make something up. using some emotive language. So, okay, so I'm going to write a sentence and I want to see if you can add some emotive language. So can you add any emotive language to that sentence to make people feel angry about it, motivated to do something?
I can say maybe a song.
Pardon?
A song, if like the song can be motivated the person. Is that right?
I'm not sure what you mean. A song?
Yeah.
So what I've asked you to do here is to add words to this sentence. So the the sentence climate change will affect us all. And I want you to add some adjectives, some describing words to make that sentence more interesting and make people feel angry about it.
Angry, yeah.
So it could start instead the So let's put an adjective here before effects. So what type of effects will climate change have?
Negative.
So negative. Any other words we could use as well, or instead of negative? Negative's a good one. Any other ideas? So the negative effects. What other words could we have used?
Drastic.
Drastic. So I'll put them all in. We wouldn't necessarily use them all in our own sentence, but we'll put them in to show you. Drastic.
Destructive.
Oh, excellent. Destructive. These are really good. So the negative, drastic, destructive effects of climate change, so will affect us all. So instead of effect, we could have something like devastate. Well, oh, if I can spell it correctly. Devastate us all. Okay, so our original sentence, the effects of climate change will affect us all. It's not very interesting. People just read it, read on. But the negative, drastic, destructive effects of climate change will devastate us all. It's a lot more emotional. It gets a response from the reader. Okay? So that's why we use that emotive language. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. So exaggeration or hyperbole. So hyperbole just means exaggeration. It's a term used in to describe literature, to describe writing. It just means exaggeration. So exaggeration is when a writer overemphasizes something. So again, all of this is about creating effect in the text to make it interesting to read, to have an impact on the reader, and so on. So examples of exaggeration. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. So we hear that, but obviously it's just exaggeration. It's not true. I am starving. So you hear this all the time. It's getting close to lunchtime. You're at work and you hear people saying, oh, I'm starving. It must be nearly lunchtime. Those people are not starving. They're just really hungry. Okay. I could sleep forever. So it's exaggeration to show how tired that person is. Okay, can anyone think of an example of exaggeration? So it might be something you've heard or just something you can come up with now. Okay, so imagine you've got a big workload. You've just been given a lot of work to do. It's going to take a long time. What might someone say to describe that using exaggeration?
This will take forever.
Excellent, yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. This will take forever. So we know it won't really take forever, but this person has got a lot of work to do. It's going to take them a very long time. So again, it just adds interest to the text that you're reading. So it's just another device that might be used by the writer. So metaphor and simile are very similar, but there is a slight difference to them. So let's start with metaphor. And a metaphor is when one thing is compared to another by saying it is something else. So this dessert is heaven. So we're saying that the dessert is actually heaven. So we understand that as meaning it's delicious, it's really tasty, but this dessert is heaven. So that emphasis of how delicious it is, because it's actually describes that it is heaven. So love is a battlefield. So someone's not had a very good experience there with love, and they're describing it as a battlefield. Okay, they're saying it actually is that, not that it's like that, but it is that. So it's again, it's that emphasis that's created by using metaphors. Okay. So can anyone think of another metaphor? So it is quite tricky, so I'm going to give you another example first. He is a night owl. Okay. So someone that stays up late at night might be described as a night owl. He's a night owl. So he's not actually an owl. He's not changed into an owl, but we're just saying that he, this person stays up very late. So
She has a heart of stone.
Oh, lovely. She has a heart of stone. I thought you were going to say a heart of gold. So when you said heart of stone, it shocked me. Total opposite meaning. But we could have both of those, and that's actually a really good example because of the two different meanings, you can see the emphasis there, like how it has an effect on the reader. She has a heart of stone, so she's a really cold person, or she has a heart of gold, she's a really kind and loving person. Okay, so right, so that's metaphor. We're describing something as something else. A simile compares one thing with another using the words like a or as a. So a metaphor says something is something else, whereas a simile compares it to something else and has those words like or as in the phrase or sentence. So we've got some examples here. As clear as mud. She has eyes like a hawk. So as clear as mud, we're saying the situation is as clear as looking through mud, so not very clear. We've got that word as in the middle. She has eyes like a hawk. So if she has eyes like a hawk, we could change that into a metaphor by saying she has hawk eyes. So can you see the difference? This one that I've just written is a metaphor because we're saying she actually has hawk eyes for emphasis. We know she doesn't, but we're using that for emphasis. But this one is a simile because it's got the word like in it. Okay, can anyone think of an example of a simile?
She's as light as a feather.
Brilliant. As light as a feather. Any others? How would we describe something that's really cold?
As cold as ice.
Good. Excellent. Okay. So we've got like or as in there, then it's a simile. Okay. Repetition. So repetition, repeating a word or phrase for emphasis. We can win this game, we can win this match, we can win this tournament. I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't even breathe. Recycle glass, recycle plastic, recycle cardboard. So just emphasising the point by repeating the word. Okay. So another, does anyone have an example? So there's a famous quote from a political speech by the people for the, describing government by the people for the people of the people. Some of you might recognise that. Okay. Just make sure I've got a capital. And a simple one, home sweet home. Okay. So any questions about repetition? So rhetorical questions. So a question that isn't intended to be answered, it's used to make the reader think or engage with the text, again, emphasising a point. So do dogs bark? So we all know that they do, so we don't need an answer, it's just used to make people think or engage. Do you want world poverty to end? So this could be an article about strategies to decrease poverty. This could be an opening sentence to engage the reader to read on, find out about this. Do you want world poverty to end? So how should I know? So we hear that all the time in speech. How should I know? We don't want an explanation of why we should know. It's just a rhetorical question that is making people know that we don't know. But it's just a different way of saying it for emphasis to make people think and engage. So can anyone think of another example of a rhetorical question? So if someone gets home late, you've been expecting them for hours, what might you say to them?
What time do you call this?
Good. Okay. Let's move on. Oh. So the rule of three, similar to repetition, but instead of it's more about the rhythm of the sentence, that how it sounds when you're reading, that causes that effect. So 3 consecutive words or phrases are used for effect. So I came, I saw, I conquered. Stop, look, and listen. That's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that? So this is from, the first one is from literature. I came, I saw, I conquered. So Julius Caesar. Stop, look, listen. That is from public information campaign for particularly aimed at children to stop, look and listen before crossing the road. And the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, so all different contexts that those are used in. It's used in all different types of texts. But you will see that that's a very common device that is used in text. So positive and negative language can be used to lead the reader, in the direction the writer wants. So by using strong adjectives or making comparisons. So often used to help the writer make the reader form a particular opinion about somebody or something such as an organisation. So you might find this in a novel when the author is describing a character who they want you to have a particular opinion of. But you'll also see this in news, could be used in news reporting that is biased to make you think of, for example, a politician a particular way, or an article to make us think of a company or organisation in a particular way. So some examples here. Alison Humphreys would make an imperious Prime Minister. So imperious, not a word we come across very often. So arrogant. Okay, so using that word is making us form an opinion of Alison Humphreys, what sort of person she is. Exval Industries had made an egregious error. So egregious, an enormous, horrendous error. So if they hadn't used that word, they'd made an error. They'd just put Exval Industries had made an error. Then the writer is not really explaining that to us or helping to form our opinion. We might just think, oh, well, people make errors all the time. It's not that bad. But using that word egregious, so it's an enormous, terrible error. So straight away, we've got a negative opinion of Exval Industries. Look at the standard of living now in contrast to that of the 1970s, and the average consumer is quids in. So it's leading us to contrast now with the 1970s. Okay, so it wants us to make that comparison. Okay, so we've not got much time left. So does anyone have any questions about positive and negative language? Okay, so we'll move on. So these are already here, but we can have a look at them anyway. As light as a feather, one of you gave that as an example, so that's excellent. So a simile. So can't you do anything right? Question mark. So we know that's a question, rhetorical question. We don't need an answer, of course. His room was a prison. So it's a metaphor. So we know because it's a metaphor, it's not somebody who's actually in prison, but somebody who needs to stay in their room for some reason. His room was a prison. Come here now. So we're starting with a verb. So, and it ends in an exclamation mark. So 2 big clues there that it is a command sentence. Finally, a sinister smile spread across his face. So we've got alliteration there. Sinister smile spread. But this is also using negative language that we've just looked at. So a sinister smile, that might be the writer is trying to help form our opinion of this person, this character. So again, language features, fun, fun, fun. It's going to be fun, fun, fun. So repetition for effect. It's to make us realise how fun it's going to be. So this is madness. So it could be procedures in an organisation. People don't agree with them. They say, this is madness doing it this way. It's exaggeration. It's not madness. It's just not the best way to do it. Direct address. So as I've said, often used in advertising and marketing. You will love our delicious breakfast. So that word you at the start of the sentence, direct address. They're talking directly to me or to you as the reader to engage us and make us think. It's raining cats and dogs. So another example of cliche. The victims were subject to a cowardly assault. So victims, cowardly, so that emotive language. So it's leading our thinking again, leading the opinions we have after reading it. Okay. So presentation features form part of the way text is structured and can include statistics, diagrams, tables and text boxes, pictures, captions, headings, subheadings, bullet points, numbered lists and website menus. So those are features that you might see in a text. Now then, we are at 10 o'clock now and we've had really good contributions today. So we've taken a bit more time, but I think that time's been spent really usefully. It is a long session, this. Does anybody need to go? Because what I could do is carry this session on for next Saturday's session if people need to leave now.
Yeah, I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Do other people need to leave?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So what we'll do, I will let the office know and we'll come back to this session next week and look at the presentation features and do it as 2 sessions because we've had an awful lot of information to take in this morning of all those different features. But thank you for your contributions. It does make a difference because if you ask a question or contribute, I'm sure there's other people thinking that as well. So it helps everybody. Thank you very much. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow for our writing session.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.